Perfetto. Okay. So, dear students, good afternoon. We have already discussed a lot about the chapter of opioid as analgesics. Please remember three important and severe side effects: tolerance, addiction, withdrawal, okay, but overall, the inhibition of the central respiratory center. So we can start with a low dose, and then during the time we have to increase the dose in order to have the same effect. But after months, it's possible to reach the concentration able to inhibit the respiratory center. So this is the problem, the main problem of this class of compounds. Very useful because, you know, we are talking about analgesics, and so normal people request this type of molecules in order to treat the pain. But they are this important side effect, the inhibition of the central respiratory center. Okay, we have already described the pharmacological properties of these compounds. You see, they are able to block the transmission of the pain. They're able to stabilize the neurons by increasing the flux of potassium channels, positive charge, and so we have a decrease in the potential, in the membrane potential. So we have an increase in stability of the membranes of the neurons. Now, we start with the description on the chemical structure of morphine. Morphine is characterized by 5 rings: ring A, ring B, ring C, ring D, and ring E, fused together. And we have already described how it is possible to identify the residue of dopamine, for example, and so we can justify the vomiting effect of morphine because it is able to activate the peripheral dopaminergic receptors. And also it's possible to identify the residue of tyrosine, which is the first amino acid of the encephalin. So, okay, you see in this picture the residue of tyrosine. This compound, morphine, and the related compounds are able to block the release of 3 substances, you see, which is an undecapeptide, 11 peptides is a chain. This compound is responsible of the pain transmission. Okay. Different types of receptors, opioid receptors. We have described OP1, OP2, and OP3. the effect of the agonist. In this class, we have agonists, full agonists, partial agonists, we'll see, and antagonists, pure antagonists. At the beginning, we will start to describe opioid agonists. Their effect, you can see in the slides: analgesia, respiratory depression, drowsiness, mood change, nausea and vomiting, meiosis, cough, reflex depression. This is an important property. We'll see that we can use some derivatives to block the cough. Development of tolerance and dependence, okay, and constipation. These compounds are able to block the movement of the intestinal muscle. Very important effect. We'll see in the case of not specific diarrhea, you know. It is an important property. Okay. Dependence, Johnson & Johnson case. Okay. Structural activity relationships of this class. As I told you before, morphine has a very complicated structure. It is a natural product, and as you know, the quantity and the quality of the natural products are related to the season. No rain, too hot. And so scientists tried in the past to simplify the chemical structure of morphine in order to have synthetic derivatives of morphine which allow the synthesis of big quantity of this type of compound. And so we'll see different classes or simplified derivatives. For example, morphinanes, benzomorphanes, 4-phenylpiperidines, phenylpropylamines. The last class is the most simple class, characterized by analgesic activity. The starting point is morphine, called 4,5-epoxymorphinane, morphine analogs. But in the past, during the 50s, two scientists tried to improve the potency of morphine by chemical complication of its structure. And so you'll see we have this yellow class called oripavine derivatives, which is characterized by a more complicated structure than morphine. So we have one class of complication and the other simplification. First of all, we describe in deep the chemical structure of morphine. You can see the 5 rings. Ring A, phenolic, aromatic, planar. B, almost saturated. C, almost saturated, there is a double bond. D, the basic ring with the basic function. And finally, E ring, the epoxy unit You see the oxygen, the ether unit. There is an oxygen, you see, as a bridge between the ring A and ring C. How many chiral centers are present in this structure? You see the different atoms. We start from position 1, 2, 3, 4, aromatic, and so no chirality. Carbon 5 is chiral because you see 3 different substituents. Carbon 6, another chiral carbon. 7, 8, no double bond. 9, once again, 3 different substituents. 10, no, because 2 hydrogens. 11 and 12, no aromatic, a double bond. 13, yes, 4 different substituents. 14, yes, 3 different substituents. So we have 5 chiral carbon atoms, 2 for 2, 4, 8, you see, 16, 32 isomers. But we have to consider only 16 isomers, not 32. Why? Because the carbon atom 13 and carbon atom 14 are blocked. It is not possible to change the configuration of these two due to the fusion between ring C, B, and D. So you see here in the picture, restriction imposed by the configuration in cis. You see, cis. What means cis? This means that ring C and ring D are on the same plane, and so the fusion is cis. So we have 2 chiral carbon atoms, but we have to consider only 1. So we have only 16 isomers of morphine. The active morphine, it's easy to remember, is 5R, 6S, 9R, 13S, 14R. So the absolute configuration is alternate. You see R, S, R, S, R. So it's easy. It's easy to remember. We start with the right, with R, and then R, S, R, S, R. You see the chemical name, too long, but just to show you the chemical name made with the ChemDraw. Okay, I'm not able to make this type of chemical name. What about the basicity? There is morphine, it is an alkaloid, so there is a basic function, you see, nitrogen, basic. 96% of morphine is protonated at the physiological pH. This means that only 3% is able to cross the blood-brain barrier to reach the brain. But this 3% is enough to give the analgesic function. And so, you know, it is an equilibrium, so 3% goes to the CNS, and then we have another 3% goes to the CNS and so on. But the limitation of the ability of morphine to cross the blood-brain barrier is due also by the two OH groups. The two OH groups are hydrophilic, so they can contribute to increase the hydrophilicity of the whole molecule. This means that if we want to increase the concentration of morphine inside the CNS, we can mask, we can protect chemically the two OH groups. With lipophilic substituents. For example, we can transform these two OH into esters. We'll see this molecule is called heroin. What's about? Okay. Just a moment. Okay. You see the chemical structure on the blackboard, and then you see the model. Ring A, aromatic. Ring B, ring C, ring D, ring E. You see the tridimensional structure of morphine. Ring C is in your direction. Ring D is under the plane formed by A, B, E. So you can see that the molecule looks like a T, the alphabet letter. You see here the T, and the two legs of the T here are formed by ring C and the ring D. But it is not a perfect T, it is a distorted T, because you see the three rings are shifted of about 30 degrees. This is a perfect T, but we have a distortion. And so the morphine is known as a distorted T, deformed T, of about 30 degrees, 30 degrees. In addition, we can observe the conformation of the two rings, rings C and ring D. The ring D is the basic ring, is in a chair conformation, the most stable you know, while the ring C is a boat conformation. You know that the boat conformation is not the most stable conformation, but there is this bond with the oxygen able to block the ring C in this high energy conformation, both, reverse both. What about the structure activity relationships? What about the different chemical groups? Ring A, the phenolic ring with the phenolic OH is essential. It's important because if you remember, this ring is the same ring is found in enkephalin, metandeoenkephalin. So it is necessary this type of function, essential. Also, the OH group, the phenolic OH group, is important. It is able to give an additional hydrogen bond with the receptor. The methylation, if we transform the OH in O-methyl, we insert a methyl on this OH group, and so we have a methoxy group in this position, reduce the activity, analgesic activity, but it maintains the ability to block the cause, antitussive activity. This compound is called codeine. Codeine is present as alkaloid inside the opium. Ethereal oxygen, epoxy oxygen is not important. We can remove this atom, and so we can have a light increase of activity. The second OH group present on the ring C is not important. We can remove, we can oxidize to ketone, for example, without any lack of a reduction of activity. The double bond, it is not important. You see the carbon atom 14. We'll see that it is possible to introduce another OH group, another alcoholic group on carbon 14. This modification increases a lot the activity. Once again, we have an additional hydrogen bond with the receptor. And finally, we have to discuss about the different substituents on the nitrogen, on the basic nitrogen atom. For an agonistic activity, the optimal is the methyl group. We can add another methyl group on the nitrogen atom, and so we have a quaternarization. Perhaps we can describe this modification on the chondroids better, I think. Just a moment. And so I open ChemOffice, ChemDraw. Just a moment. Okay. Oh, yeah. Where is? Okay. So we can have this situation. Okay. We can have another methyl group, and in this way, I have a permanent positive charge on the nitrogen. this compound is not able to cross the blood-brain barrier. But if injected directly inside the CNS, it is active. This means that this compound is able to interact with the opioid receptor. This means also that the active form of morphine in the interaction with the receptor is the protonated form. Here, here, and here. So once again, we can say that the neutral, uncharged form, it is necessary to cross the blood-brain barrier, but the active form is the positive charged form. What about the different groups that we can insert on the nitrogen atom? If we increase the dimension of the methyl group, we can have antagonistic properties. For example, if we have this type of substituents, just a moment. This is called allylic group. This allylic group is able to increase the antagonistic properties of the molecule by maintaining the same backbone, the same structure of morphine. Another group able to increase the antagonistic properties is this one. Just a moment. Oops, here there is a methyl group between the two. This one. Okay. They try this small cycle formed by 3 atoms, cyclopropyl methyl, is responsible of antagonistic properties. But why we are searching antagonistic properties in this class? Because if we are lucky, this compound can act as antagonist on the respiratory centers and can act as agonist on analgesic receptors, analgesic receptors. So if we want to improve the safety of this class, we can use a partial agonist. We say partial agonist means that this compound can act as agonist, maybe not full agonist, on the pain receptor, but as antagonist on the respiratory center. So we can have a safer molecule. if we increase further the dimension of the substituents on the nitrogen atom, for example, this one, we can introduce the phenylacetic residue. This type of substituent, it is able to increase the potency, the agonistic potency of morphine or other derivatives. So we'll find these substituents, these bulky substituents, because you see there is an aromatic ring with an ethyl chain, phenylethyl chain. We can have a more potent agonist. So please, you have to check very carefully the different substituents on the nitrogen atom, because the different substituents are responsible of the pharmacological profile. We can transform an agonist into an antagonist. This is the critical point. The substituents, the different substituents on the nitrogen atom. Another question from the student is, Professor, how can we draw the chemical structure of morphine? Normally, I use this method. The first aromatic ring, the second here, the third here, and then you have basic function here, 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 here. Nitrogen, this point, methyl group, OH in this position, OH in others. And then we have epoxide bridge here. Double bond in this position. So normally I start with aromatic. The phenanthreading system, you see, you have 3 6-atom ring, like phenanthread, you see. And then you have the basic here. And then you have the epoxide in this position. What about these two OH? Yeah, already discussed about the increased hydrophilicity due by the presence, the hydrophilicity due by the presence of these two OH groups. How can we mask these two compounds? The reaction is very simple. We need acetic anhydride. See? Now, if you remember, an anhydride is an activated form of an acid. Oh, sorry. Acetic anhydride is formed by two molecules of acetic acid without a molecule of a water. Is a condensed form of that dehydrated acetic acid. As I told you before, it is an activated form of an acid, an organic acid. So what happens? The 2OH group are two nucleophiles able to give an attack directly to the carbonyl of the acetic anhydride. So we need two molecules of anhydride to have the esterification of the 2OH groups. So the final product is this one. Here you have. CH3, oxygen, oxygen, CH3. This is the molecule of heroin. But why the people transform morphine in heroin? They can sell morphine directly. Why they use a lot of acetic anhydride to transform morphine in heroin? Because heroin is more potent. It is necessary a low quantity of heroin to have the same effect of a high quantity of morphine. So if we have 1 gram of morphine, we can have 1.5 grams, for example, more or less, of heroin. But we can prepare a lot of doses, the small quantity of heroin. So they can gain a lot of money with a low quantity of morphine. They prepare a lot of doses of heroin. But why heroin is more potent? You see, the 2OH groups are masked, are protected by two esters. So heroin has a higher lipophilicity. So there is a higher quantity of heroin able to cross the blood-brain barrier. And then inside the CNS, there are specific enzymes called esterases able to hydrolyze the two esters groups to give again morphine, because only morphine interact with the receptor. Heroin is not able, due to the presence of these two esters, these two bulky ester functions. So heroin is not active, but it has a higher lipophilicity. More heroin is able to cross the blood-brain barrier. Inside the CNS, it is transformed again in morphine by the activity of esterases. Is it clear? Yes? Have you any question at home? No? The transformation of morphine in heroin was performed at the beginning of 19th century by a German company called Boehringer. But why they use this type of reaction? In that time, this company had a big quantity, really big quantity of acetic anhydride inside the plant. And they have to use it. At the beginning, they transformed the salicylic acid. We'll see this compound in the next chapter of anti-inflammatory agents. It is a natural product. You see the chemical structure of salicylic acid. This compound has an anti-inflammatory activity, but it is able to give this therapeutic activity only on the skin. It is not able to cross the membrane because it is too polar. There is a acidic function with a phenolic function. It's too hydrophilic. In that time, the same company transformed the salicylic acid in an ester. Called acetyl salicylic acid. The commercial name is aspirin. Do you know aspirin? Aspirin can be used orally. Good activity. Low side effects. And so, after this transformation of salicylic acid in acetyl salicylic acid, they decided to make the same transformation on morphine. So these two compounds, heroin and acetyl salicylic acid, are like two sisters. Same reaction, same period, same company, same logic. So when you see this type of function, you can remember the reason: high quantity of acetic anhydride. In that time, no investigation, no stuff, so you can understand. They tried to have a new drug in this way, but they get a strong success. Okay. Once again, about structure activity relationships of morphine. We have said that this OH group is not important. So we can oxidize to ketone, more or less the same activity, but another interesting point. Sorry, there is a mistake. Oh, sometimes I make a mistake also. Oops. It looks like not so. This one. Okay. In that time, they tried to introduce another OH group on the carbon 14. Why? Because this OH group is able to give an additional hydrogen bond with the receptor. So we'll see that it's very easy. We'll see the reaction. It's possible to introduce an OH group in this position. This compound is very potent. It's called oxycodone. Oxycodone in Italian. It is one on the best-seller morphine derivatives sold in the pharmacy. Very potent, but the same side effects of morphine, so dependence, tolerance, and so on. So very potent, but check carefully in the side effects. This OH in this position, it is very important to have an optimal interaction with the receptors. And if we transform the methyl group on the nitrogen atom with an antagonistic group, like a cyclopropyl methyl group, we have one of the most potent antagonists. The two antagonists of morphine are called naloxone and naltrexone. OH group on carbon 14 and an antagonistic substituents, the cyclopropyl group or allylic group. We have already seeing that it's possible to introduce also this type of group. We'll see now on the slides, but it's just to describe you how we can change the chemical groups on the structure of morphine. Pure antagonist. Pure antagonist means that these compounds are not able to activate the receptor, but they're able to occupy the receptor. In part, yes?
Does it mean it can be used in cases of
overdose? Yeah. We can use this compound in the case of overdoses to prevent the inhibition of the respiratory centers. But if you use this compound in a patient treated with morphine, this compound occupies the receptors, and then if you have immediately the abstinence crisis, the withdrawal crisis. Because you occupy the receptor, but you are not able to, this compound are not able to activate the receptor. Some years ago, some American companies want to check the people working in the different companies, if they use morphine, heroin, or something like that. And they wanted to inject directly naloxone to see the reaction. Can you understand me? It's like an undirected proof. Alla faccia della privacy. Okay. Or if used for a long time morphine, and then you have stopped the use of morphine, and you want to be protected against the reuse of this type of compound, you can assume this antagonist for time, because they occupy the receptor. So if you assume morphine, you have no activity. So you can protect for 2-3 months these people when they decide to stop the use of the morphine. So this is another use of this type of compound. Okay, so I have described to you some structure-activity relationships, and then we see on the slide these different compounds. So, just a moment. Okay, this one. Oh, you have here an example of the we'll see later. Now it is important to see the other. Oops, just a moment here. You see heroin. The two OH group are esterified. Hydrolysis by esterases at the beginning on the phenolic OH and then on the alcoholic to give again morphine inside the CNS. You see diamorphine, heroin, crosses the blood-brain barrier within 20 seconds with almost 70% of the dose reaching the brain. This is the reason why morphine is transformed in heroin. You have a more potent compound. When we say more potent, we say a potent activity on pain receptors, yes, but also more potent side effects. So when we say more potent, we say toxicity and activity all together. Please taking into account this fact. We see the importance of the 2-OH, in particular of the tyrosinic phenolic OH, in the interaction with the receptors. A lot of investigations were performed on this type of receptors just to find a selective painkiller, but as I told you, it's not possible. Painkiller, the painkiller activity is always together with inhibition of respiratory center at the moment. Aspirin, you see the transformation of salicylic acid in acetyl salicylic acid. Once again, esterification of the phenolic group. And here below, you can see the transformation of morphine into heroin. This is another problem. Low doses of heroin at €5. Because at the beginning, you can have heroin at low price. And then when you have a dependence, you develop a dependence, and then the price is higher. This is the marketing technique approach. This is another street drug called desomorphine or crocodile. Crocodile, because when you use this type of drug, your skin can have the same aspect of a crocodile. To synthesize this drug, people use the same reaction that perhaps you have seen in this movie by these two guys. They transform the pseudoephedrine in methamphetamine. We have to reduce this OH group by an halogenated agent, in this case iodidric acid, and in reductive condition as red phosphorus. You see here ephedrine at the beginning, iodidric acid, we have the transformation of the OH in iodine, and then reduction with the phosphor to CH2. The same reaction was applied on codeine. Codeine, I remember you, is a morphine where the phenolic OH is a methoxy group, not a free OH. Same reaction means that we can use an halogenated agent. In this reaction is a thionyl chloride. We transform this OH in an halogen. The same you see OH in iodine, OH in chlorine, the same. And then reduction the other case red phosphorus, in this case hydrogen, and you have the complete reduction of the carbon atom to CH2. And then the methylation of the phenolic function, of the methoxy function to give the free OH. This is desomorphin, especially in Russia. They buy big quantity of codeine and they transform codeine in desomorphin. More potent, less hydrophilic than morphine. But the users of this type of street drug have the problem with the skin, as I told you before. You see here the chemical structure of codeine. R is a methyl group. Heroin, the two groups are two esters. Hydromorphone, hydrocodone, you have the reduction, the oxidation, of the OH group. And oxymorphone, oxycodone, we have the introduction of the OH on carbon 14 in order to increase the interaction, an additional hydrogen bond with the receptor. What about the complication of the chemical structure of morphine? You see a sample reaction called 4 plus 2 to give 6, like in mathematics, you see. 4, butadiene, 2 double bonds, plus an activated double bond, activated, but activated means electrophilic. Why electrophilic? Because you see there are 2 esters able to attract the electron cloud of the double bond. So we have 2 partial positive charge on this double bond. The 2 electronegative, the 2 partial negative charged carbon atom, the butadiene, can attack the 2 partial positive, and so we can have a 6-member ring. You see better in this picture what happens. You have the butadiene here, and then you see the double bond. We can have an overlapping of the 2 orbitals, and then the formation of a new bond. Cycle addition 4 plus 2 to give 6. This reaction is called Diels-Alder. It is very common in the formation of pesticides. It's used in big quantity of substrate. But where this reaction was used? You see here the chemical structure of thebaine. Thebaine has the same chemical structure of morphine, but on the C ring you see 2 double bonds, not 1 but 2. If you see in the morphine, you see there is only 1. In the case of thebaine, you have 2 double bonds. So we have a system like a butadiene And so some scientists decide to make a Diels-Alder reaction, a 4 plus 2, on the C ring. In particular, they use this type of ketone, methyl vinyl ketone. You see, methyl vinyl. Then, on the ketone, they made a Grignard reaction. The final point, I am not interested in this type of synthesis, but it's just to show you how it's possible to increase the potency of morphine. The final compound, with an additional cycle on the C ring, is called etorphine. The commercial name is Immobilon. It is 1,000 times more potent than morphine. We use this compound to immobilize elephants and other big animals. Just to immobilize, not to kill. For 1 hour, 2 hours, if we want to control, for example, legs, or what you want, the scientists, they can use, you see, this compound to immobilize these big animals. This compound was used more than 20 years ago in a theater in Russia against the terrorists. They injected this compound through the air conditioning plant. But the problem was that in that theater there were a lot of children and they died by inhibition of the respiratory centers. And to save the adults, they use naloxone as an antidote to prevent the block. Just to show you the potency of this type of compounds. Okay. Have you any questions at the moment? No? Okay. Have you any question at home? All clear?
Clear, thanks.
Okay. So we can stop for 15 minutes. We take a coffee. Yes, please.
So the one sold in the pharmacies, the morphine derivatives sold in the various pharmacies.
The
morphine derivatives
yes.
sold in the various pharmacies.
Yeah.
Are they the active form ones or the neutral uncharged ones?
Oh, I don't understand.
I'm asking that the morphine derivatives sold in the various pharmacies, are they the neutral uncharged form? Or
okay, morphine.
Ones.
Okay, morphine when it interacts with the receptor should be in charged form, but when it crosses the blood-brain barrier, in neutral form. And at physiological pH 97 is protonated, so it's charged. Only 3% is able to cross. Okay, but if you remember, we have this situation. So we have this protonated form is active, okay, not able to cross the DBP, okay. This one, okay, active. Is not, this is not that. Active is this form. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the active discharge, okay. This is active, but it's able to cross the BBB, and then when it arrives inside the CNS, it is transformed again in the protonated form. This is the problem. We start from the protonated form, 97. 3% is unprotonated, cross the blood-brain barrier. When they arrive inside the CNS, it is transformed again protonated form. Do you understand? This is the situation. Active form, interaction with the receptor, is the charged form. Uncharged is able to cross the BBB or other membranes. Clear? Okay. Ok. Ok. Allora, blocco un attimo. Okay. We start again. Ah, questo era finito. Vediamo questo. Ok, vediamo se si vede. Perfetto. Here in this picture, you can see the most important derivative of morphine, codeine. You see a methyl group on this oxygen. Hydromorphone, you see we have a ketone instead of this alcoholic function. Oxymorphone, oxycodone, you see we have a methyl group for oxycodone here. And in particular, there is the OH on the carbon 14. Buprenorphine is a drug similar to atropine, you see, on the ring C. You see this endoethanic chain inside the cycle, the C cycle. Here you see the first simplified family without the oxygen bridge of ring E, levorphanol in particular. Here you can see another simplified derivative is called fentanyl, 4-phenylpiperidine is called. And here the most simple derivative of this class is tapentadol, that together with the methadone represent the most simple form of the morphine derivative. As I told you before, the scientists investigated a lot the importance of the different groups in the morphine. Here on your left, you can see the chemical structure of morphine. And the first simplification was on ring E. In particular, the scientists, you see, eliminated this ring. You see here the simplified form. And we start from the 4,5-epoxymorphinane, 4,5-epoxymorphinane, and we go to morphinane without 4,5-epoxy, you see. There is no more the oxygen bridge. If we have all groups, all features similar to morphine, we have levorphanol, minus levorphanol. Minus levorphanol is characterized by the lack of the oxygen bridge between 4 and 5. The activity of levorphanol is more potent. The activity is higher than that of morphine. But this means that we have an higher activity, but also most potent side effects. Levorphanol is not used in therapy. It's just the prototype of morphinans. In therapy, we can find the mirror image of levorphanol called dextrorphan. In particular, levorphanol is an analgesic, painkiller but not in use. Dextrorphan is a very common antitussive, anti-cough. In particular, we can introduce on the phenolic OH a methyl group, and we have dextrometorphan. Dextrometorphan is a common antitussive compound. You can buy freely this compound in pharmacy because dextrometorphan has not any central activity on CNS, but only activity on the cough center. It has fewer side effects than codeine. So instead of codeine, it is better to use dextrometorphan if we want to stop the cough. We stop only the cause, not the cause. If we have an infection in the lung, the infection remains. We can block only, with the dextrometorphan, we can block only the cause. Because if we want to treat the infection, we have to use an antibiotic together with dextrometorphan. But sometimes there are some examples of cough during the night in the children. And so you can use this type of compound just to block the cough during the night, and so the children sleep, and so also the parents stay better. Once again, in this class, the OH, the phenolic group, is essential, is important. Also the phenolic ring. Once again, you see the methyl group on the nitrogen, on the basic nitrogen atom. But nothing new. Only the use of the mirror image, the dextrometorphan instead of levorphanol. An additional simplification. 4,5-epoxy morphinans, and then we can open the C ring. We can open, you see, A, B, C, D. This is ring C. We can open this type of ring. And so you see we have only 3 rings, A, B, and D. Basic, the aromatic, and the aliphatic ring. This family is called benzomorphans. So 4,5-epoxy morphinans, benzomorphans. You see 2 methyl groups in this position that remember the C ring. These two methyl remain on these two carbon atoms just to remember ring C. If all the chemical structure is similar to that of morphine, so we have the OH group, phenolic group, aromatic, a methyl nitrogen atom, we have metazocine. Metazocine is a pure agonist. It derives directly from morphine, from morphinans. And metazocine represents the prototype of benzomorphans. Also in this class, it is very important the phenolic function. The OH group, the phenolic group on the aromatic ring. So really, you can start from morphine, you can open the first ring, ring E, and then you can open the ring C, and then you have the simplification of the structure of morphine. Which is the most important compound of this family? Is not metazocine. The most important compound of this class is pentazocine. Penta in Greek means 5. 5 carbon atoms on a nitrogen. Just a moment. I open, can draw again, just to show you. New. So we have our basic group. 5 carbon atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we insert this chain formed by 5 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the nitrogen atom, we have pentazocine. It is a partial agonist. This means that we can use this compound better than morphine because it is safer. It can block the inhibition of the respiratory centers. And it's one of the most used compound of the whole class. The commercial name is Talvin. So when we have to treat the pain, at the beginning we can use anti-inflammatory agents, for example ibuprofen or diclofenac, other compounds. And then we pass to this class of morphine derivatives. At the beginning, we can use pentazocine, and only at the end, we use morphine, just to avoid the severe side effects, tolerance, dependence, respiratory center inhibition, and so on. This is the series of the different compound used to treat the pain. Pentazocine is one of the safer compounds used to treat the pain, cancer pain especially. Just a moment. Here. So you see how it is possible to transform a metazocine, a pure agonist, in an antagonist by the replacement of the methyl group with the dimethyl group, is called. Penta means 5, so you have to remember 5 carbon atoms on nitrogen. So once again, 4,5-epoxymorphinans, morphinans, benzomorphans, and then we can open ring B. We can open ring B. You see, remain the piperidine ring and a phenyl group in the 4th position. You see 4-phenylpiperidine because we have opened the B ring. Also 4-phenylpiperidine are active as painkiller. But the phenolic OH is not so important in this class. And if you see, this is the prototype of this class called meperidine. In meperidine, no OH on the aromatic group. If you remember, we have already met this type of compounds. In particular, I show you again when. Just a moment. I can draw this one. Okay. When we discussed about anti-Parkinson disease, if you remember this compound, some students was synthesized this compound. Just a moment. The students wanted to synthesize this compound because it is very similar to meperidine. Meperidine is the inverse ester. So this is meperidine. This is MPPQ. So it is not in literature the potency of the 4-phenylpiperidine as painkiller. The students wanted to synthesize the inverted ester. If you see, the functions are inverted, because they believed that these inverted ester had the same potency of the meperidine. In particular, the scientists tried to increase the potency of this class of compounds by inserting a phenethyl substituent on the basic ring. So instead of the methyl group, they inserted a phenethyl, you see, a phenylethyl substituent, just to increase the potency of this class of compound, these 4 piperidines. And in fact, the more potent exponent of this class is called fentanyl. Fentanyl, the name derives from phenyl ethyl. You see, fentanyl is a fusion of phenyl ethyl together. And fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. No antagonists in this class. It is not possible to transform fentanyl, which is a pure agonist, in an antagonist or in a partial agonist, as we have seen for metazocine. Only agonist. So please remember, no OH on the aromatic ring, no antagonist in this class. But there is another point. Okay, here you can see meperidine hydrochloride, you see fentanyl, you see the phenethyl group on a nitrogen atom to increase the potency, different group in 4 position. But where is the point? Oops. Methadone, where is the point? Okay. Just a moment, because I don't remember where it is. Reduction, this one for. No. Okay, later. Okay. No problem. Sorry. Fentanyl is used especially for the intervention on brain, neuroleptoanalgesia, when the patient should be present to give indication to the medical doctor about the different brain regions in the brains and so on. Okay, but there is another point. These opioid derivatives are also potent as to block the motility, intestinal motility. And from this class, from the class of 4-phenylpiperidine, some compounds were derived having this type of activity. How we can limit the activity of this compound only on the intestinal muscles? It is important to avoid the brain, the effects on the brain. Here you can see the chemical structure of loperamide hydrochloride. It's called Imodium. It is one of the most common compounds used for the treatment of a specific diarrhea. If you see on your left, there is the backbone, the skeleton of the 4-phenylpiperidine, but on the nitrogen atom, it was inserted a more complex side chain, a polar side chain. You see here the amide function, in order to avoid the crossing of the blood-brain barrier, in order to limit the effect of this type of compound only on the intestinal muscle. And so it is important to note that in this class you can find some compound for the treatment of the diarrhea. This is the point. Finally, the last class, the simplified class of morphine, is represented by phenylpropylamines. Once again, here you can see morphine. We have open E-ring. We are open, and then from 4,5-epoxymorphinanes, we got morphinans, and then we have opened C-ring, benzomorphans, and then we have opened the B-ring, 4-phenylpiperidine, and then we open the basic ring, the D-ring. You see, we have only a linear chain, a basic function, an aromatic ring. Phenylpropylamine. The prototype of this class is methadone. Methadone was synthesized during the Second World War by German scientists when the German troops did not receive any opium or morphine from India, from Bangladesh, from that regions, because that regions were under the English troops. And so methadone is the simplified form of morphine. If injected, methadone has the same activity of morphine. But the use of today is not as painkiller, but it is used in Italy to help the people to stop the dependence of morphine. In this way, for this purpose, for this use, it is assumed orally and not injected, because orally, if you remember, we have only 30% of absorption, while by injection we have 100% of absorption. The low quantity of absorbed methadone orally, it is enough to help the patients, the people, to finish, to stop, to do not feel the dependence for morphine. Methadone is used for 2 weeks, but after that we have to help the people to do not assume again the morphine. Here you can see the chemical structure of methadone. Basic function, 1, 2, 3, the normal propyl chain. In alpha position there is an important methyl group. In 3 position, 2 phenyl rings. And always on carbon 3 you see another lipophilic chain, a ketone function. This simple molecule is able to give the same effect of morphine. This means that methadone represents the pharmacophore, the minimal chemical structure necessary to give the activity of morphine. Minimal structure. It is not possible to further simplify this type of structure. You see, nitrogen can be incorporated in a cycle, okay. Methyl group in alpha position, it is important. Normethadone, the component without, the compound without this methyl group is less effective than methadone. Important are the 2 phenyl rings, and also it is important lipophilic chain, side chain. Metabolism of methadone. You can see here a possible transformation of methadone in 4-phenylpiperidine. And also here you can see a reduction of the ketone to alcohol, nitrogen dealkylation, normethanol still active, dealkylation, once again, the second methyl group, dinormethadol still active, and then you can normethadone, once again, dinormethadone, and so on. All these metabolites are present in the urine of the patients. Here you can see the pattern of the methadone withdrawal timeline. You see that it is very important to use this type of compound to help the patient against the dependence for morphine. It is necessary the oral administration of methadone. not the administration by injection. And this is an important point. Okay, another compound was dextropropoxifen, but now it's not on the market, and so it's not important. The FDA removed this drug from the market because they had a severe effect, a side effect on the heart, and so withdrew from the market. We have seen how it is possible to simplify the chemical structure of morphine in order to have synthetic analogs. But there is another compound, very common, very used, called contramal, tramadol. Here you see the chemical structure of codeine. You see there is a methyl in this position. So it is not morphine. Morphine has a OH. Here there is a methyl group. This is codeine. We can open the E ring. We can open B ring. We can open D ring. And here you see the result of these rings opening. Tramadol. Tramadol is characterized by a basic function, of course. Ring C remain, and the ring A with the methoxy group remain. It is a very potent painkiller, but this compound is synthesized in big quantities by ISIS and used by ISIS fighter. The same use of heroin during the First World War. No pain, no fear. It is very potent. This compound interacts not only with opioid receptors, because naloxone is not able to completely antagonize its activity. This means that this compound interacts also with other receptors, for example, reuptake of noradrenaline, or with other receptors like 5-hydroxytryptamine receptors involved in fear and so on. So it is very, very common. It does not cause respiratory depression and constipation. So no, it has not these side effects. Good painkiller, no respiratory depression, no constipation, no block of the gastrointestinal muscle movements. Yes?
Then why isn't it used legally to use as a painkiller?
Oh, so
Why
I'm
is it-
daft, and so please.
No, why isn't it also used legally to treat pain?
Yes.
Okay.
In hospital, yes, of course. My wife, 3 years ago, was in a hospital for a big intervention on the utero, and then it had a pump, a small pump here, and then this pump covered for 3 days the pain with a small doses of contramal every hour, small doses. Then, the first 3 days after surgery are critical. And so you can control the pain with the Contaman. Yes, it is used in hospital. Yeah. But also by ISIS fighters,
Currently, all of these drugs are also used legally and are legal.
Yeah, okay, of course. But also it's designed in Syria, in that regions, in very, very high quantities because they can sell this compound on the market and so, illegal market, of course. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah?
I have a curiosity question.
This?
A curiosity question.
Yeah.
People taking these drugs
Yeah.
for the bad, especially when they want to have sexual intercourse to last, I don't know, what longer or whatever.
Yeah.
So they take multiple tablets
Yeah.
of them. So what relationship has it got to do with that intention, considering it's an opioid?
Yes. I don't know their effect on sexual intercourse, I don't know. But probably you have no more barrier in brain, and so perhaps can help you to cross some fears and so on. This is my opinion, but I am not a specialist.
So usually we never sold without prescription. Somehow that's what the pharmacy.
But normally they use other drugs. No, these drugs I think are depressive. So perhaps you cannot have a high performance. I think it's my opinion. But they don't know.
Aside the others, people still working for this particular one. Aside the others, they're still working for this particular one for that particular intention. And I don't know why.
Okay, I know that there are particular basic natural compounds. In particular, there is brucine is say in Italian. And these basic compounds are influenced on the sexual behavior of man, yes. But I don't know this compound. I don't know really. So it is a strong painkiller. Yes, I know. I know, but finally, the last compound of this class is tapentadol. It's very recent, and so you can see a very simple linear chain with two chiral centers, an aromatic, a phenolic ring. Really? I'm sorry. It is the open ring analog of tramadol, you see. It can react, it is also able to block the reuptake of serotonin and other compounds. It's very recent. Okay, so have you any questions at the moment? Okay, 10 minutes and then we close. We have seen a long series of derivatives of this class, the complexity of the chemical structure of morphine, and the interesting therapeutic activity of these compounds, and the potency of these compounds. So, some scientists try to build a model, to develop a model of the opioid receptors. Why a model? Just to have, to put together all the indications which derive from the different compounds that we have described. In particular, there are three important points that we have to take into account if we want to design new painkillers, new narcotics. We have seen that in all compounds there is a basic nitrogen. This means that the nitrogen is protonated, the active form is protonated, so it is necessary an anionic site, a negative site, able to interact with the an ionic bond with the positive nitrogen, protonated nitrogen atom. Then we have seen a chain, a B ring, what you want, an aliphatic area. So it is necessary an hydrophobic cavity. And finally, we have seen the presence of an aromatic ring, a flat ring. So it is necessary a flat surface able to interact with the aromatic ring by pi-pi interaction, you know, van der Waals, what you want. This model that you see in the picture was developed by Beckett-Casey in '54, and it is called three-point interaction model. Basic site, planar aromatic, and then a hydrophobic cavity. Here you can see this model by just to understand the interaction of this model with morphine. You see morphine in the middle, aromatic phenolic ring, so pi-pi interaction, van der Waals interaction with the flat region, an additional OH bond with another group on the receptor, the basic ionic bond with an anionic site. This hydrophobic slot, you see van der Waals interaction. These are the 3 points described in that time by Beckett-Casey. But in that time, there was another problem. 4-phenylpiperidine. This model is in accord to the chemical structure of morphine. But if we put inside this model 4-phenylpiperidine, we can have some troubles, some problems. Why? You see here the 4-phenylpiperidine, which derives from the opening of ring B. And here you can see that the phenyl group is in axial position. But if you remember from organic chemistry, if you have a bulky group on a cyclohexane, a bulky group such this phenyl ring, the bulky groups are not in axial position, but in equatorial position, just to limit their interaction with electronic clouds of the other atoms on the ring. So you see the red arrow, the equilibrium is on the left, where the aromatic ring is located in equatorial form and not in axial. The scientists try to find a solution by synthesizing this compound with the aromatic ring frozen, blocked in equatorial. This is a 4-phenylpiperidine with this additional chain able to block in equatorial position the phenyl ring. The scientists found that also this compound has a very potent analgesic activity. So, in that time, we had a problem. Why? The model is constructed for morphine, where the phenyl ring is in axial position, but we have seen that if the phenyl ring is in equatorial, it is still active. And so the scientists try to elaborate another theory, receptor theory. The anionic site, it is important. We have already seen the protonated form of nitrogen atom, ionic bound, so, okay, bond, sorry. Hydrophobic cavity, flat surface, but the anionic site represents the cornerstone. The anionic site is common to all morphine's derivatives. But the aromatic ring can go into different positions. The first position is reserved to morphine, morphinans, and benzomorphinans. And the second position is reserved to 4-phenylpiperidine. Because in the 4-phenylpiperidine, the phenyl ring is in equatorial and no more in axial position. There was another important point. The OH group, the phenolic group, it is important only for the first 3 families: epoxymorphinans, morphinans, benzomorphinans, not for 4-phenylpiperidine. The scientists worked a lot. They tried to find a solution to this problem. They discussed a lot of papers, and the solution was found after the identification of the 2 enkephalins inside our body. Because enkephalins. If you remember, enkephalins are formed by 2 aromatic amino acids. The first one is a tyrosine with an OH. There is a spacer formed by 2 glycine. And then there is a phenylalanine residue. Phenylalanine has not an OH on the aromatic ring. So the scientists said, The anionic side is common to all compounds, but morphine derivatives put their phenolic group with the area reserved to tyrosine of the enkephalin, while the 4-phenylpiperidine put their aromatic ring in the same area of phenylalanine. Same anionic site, different aromatic regions. One for the phenolic residues and the second one for the aromatic ring, the sample without any OH. This is the most recent model of the opioid receptor, based on the chemical structure of enkephalins. You see once again morphine on your right, interaction with the tyrosine of metenkephalin. It seems that oripavin, the most complicated derivative of this derivatives of this group, are able to occupy both flat areas, and this can explain their high potency. Have you any questions? All clear? All clear? Yes? No? No? I think this picture is very clear. You can see the chemical structure of the enkephalin here. The two aromatic groups, one with OH for morphine, and the second one you see with the aromatic ring for phenylalanine, for phenylpiperidine. Have you any question at all? No?
Clear, thanks.
Okay. So